On the street, someone tried to abduct me, forcibly dragging me away. I shouted loudly, "I won't join you in drug trafficking. Help, she's a drug addict. Call the police to arrest them." After being reborn, I will never let them use such despicable tricks to abduct me to the mountains and suffer endless torment again. The human traffickers who were tightly gripping me were utterly stunned. Sure enough, as soon as my words were spoken, the hesitant crowd around us immediately changed their expressions upon hearing anything related to drugs. In our country, the moment ordinary people hear about drugs, they won't hesitate to call the police, so whether it was true or not, we were quickly surrounded by the onlookers, making it impossible for the 4 traffickers to escape through the encircling crowd, and so, when the police arrived, we were all taken to the police station together. There were a total of 4 human traffickers, 1 woman and 3 men. The woman was around 50 years old, and the 3 men were also strong middle-aged individuals. Their simple, unassuming appearance would never make anyone suspect they were involved in the most heinous trade. The ones I remembered as being extremely arrogant were now all cowering in fear, with the tallest man even wetting his pants from terror. Outwardly, I remained composed, but inwardly, I was sneering with cold amusement. This time, I will use legal means to send them to prison. I remember before my rebirth, they used this method to forcibly abduct me from the streets to a mountain village, where I lived a life worse than that of pigs and dogs. 5 years later, my parents finally found me, but unfortunately, by then, I was already terminally ill, lying in bed. I couldn't move, and my broken legs hurt so much. 3 days later, my biological parents stayed by my side, accompanying me on my final journey. The police investigation revealed the truth. It was all because my biological parents' adopted daughter had known of my existence 5 years prior. She deliberately contacted human traffickers, using this method to abduct me into the mountains, condemning me to a life worse than death. Even though she was eventually caught, who could possibly compensate for my lost life? I was filled with such hatred that I refused to close my eyes even in death. I just didn't expect that when I opened my eyes again, I would find myself standing on the street, right on the day I was abducted. Before I could even rejoice at my rebirth, I saw the 4 traffickers who had taken me before approaching me. Back then, they had deliberately claimed I was a runaway and forcibly took me away, with no bystanders intervening. That's why I intentionally revealed those words to the people around me this time, under police interrogation. These people couldn't withstand the pressure and quickly confessed. They admitted to being traffickers and revealed that this time, someone had paid them to specifically abduct me and take me to a remote mountain area. Though they didn't know who that person was, the police took this case very seriously after learning about the incident. The female officer, Officer Jane, who was responsible for looking after me, comforted me. "It's good that you were quick-witted, otherwise, if they had succeeded, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Don't worry, we will definitely catch the mastermind behind this. For now, avoid going out alone and always stay with your friends. If anything happens, contact us immediately," I said gratefully. Thank you. In truth, I already knew who the mastermind behind the attempted abduction was, but without evidence now, who would believe that I had been reborn? But since I've been reborn, I will never let her go. Linda. I went to register with my Tsinghua University admission letter in hand. When I stood at the campus gate, tears nearly welled up in my eyes. If I hadn't been abducted to the mountains last time, I should have been studying hard on campus. After the college entrance exam, I was admitted to Tsinghua University, which shocked the entire village, and my grandmother was also very happy. I was picked up and adopted by her, but Grandma treated me very well and often encouraged me to study hard, especially emphasizing that girls should pursue education, as marriage shouldn't be their only path in life. However, I didn't get the chance to properly take care of her in her old age. The very next day, Grandma passed away peacefully in her sleep. I will always remember what Grandma said to me: "Study hard, and you will surely have a bright future." My Natalie is going to be a doctor someday, and my grandmother would never know that in my previous life, my entire life was ruined. I had no success and never became a doctor. After finding my dormitory, I settled in and began my campus life, but I didn't forget about seeking revenge. Before I was abducted, Linda and I were already acquainted. We attended the same high school and were even classmates. After the college entrance exam, I was admitted to Tsinghua University. While I heard from classmates that her scores weren't even enough for a vocational college, so she decided to retake the exam. On the day I was rescued, the truth came to light, and Linda was also arrested. It was clearly Linda who ruined my life, but as the police took her away, she was still shouting, "It's your appearance that ruined me, why don't you just die?" At that moment, I realized that evil people will never admit their mistakes. I officially began my revenge plan. I voluntarily went to the police station to give a blood sample. In my previous life, I never sought out my biological parents and didn't take the initiative to provide blood samples to the authorities, which resulted in my parents finding me 5 years later in the mountains. But this time was different. Sure enough, a week later, I received a call from the police. The officer excitedly informed me that my DNA had matched with a certain family. I had found my biological parents. I pretended to be surprised, but in reality, I had known who my biological parents were all along. I just needed to rationalize everything. I finally met my biological parents as my true self. Compared to the wretched state I was in last time, trapped in a pig pen, at least this time my legs were still intact. I thought I wouldn't cry. I believed that after all the hardships of my previous life, my tears had long since dried up, but I still underestimated who I am now. My tears still fell when my mother held me tightly. My tears were uncontrollable. My father also hugged me. They held me so tightly, as if afraid they might lose me again. In my previous life, they never dared to hug me firmly because my body was covered in wounds, and they feared hurting me. In my final days, they stayed by my side the entire time. At first, I was numb and just wanted to die quickly, but they never left me, refusing to give up on me. I know they must have cried countless times behind my back. I also know that after the truth came out, they all regretted it. My parents knelt on the ground, kowtowing and apologizing to me, believing it was their fault for adopting a thankless wretch that ruined my life. They also told me the truth, that when my mother was recovering in the maternity center after giving birth to me, I was stolen by the nanny. Linda is the daughter of my father's younger brother, born a few days after me. Linda's father passed away a few months before I was born, and her mother went missing abroad after giving birth. So they took Linda in, but they never registered her in their household register nor went through the adoption procedures. At school, Linda called them parents, and they thought it was because she feared others would look at her differently, so they allowed her to pretend she had a complete family outside. They just privately let Linda call them uncle and aunt. I said nothing, because I had long lost my voice. Those beasts not only broke my legs but also cut out my tongue. In the end, I didn't blame them. I only hoped they could live well. At this moment, Mom and Dad took me home together. They had already learned from the police that I got into Tsinghua University, but when they heard me say it with my own mouth, they were still overjoyed, crying and laughing. My mom held my hand. "My daughter is amazing, so outstanding." My dad's eyes also shone with pride and admiration. "Sweetheart, we're so happy you got into Tsinghua through your own efforts. We didn't help you at all. But from now on, whatever you want, Mom and Dad will give it to you. What do you want? What do you like?" A smile appeared on my face, but in reality, my inner voice was saying, "I want Linda to go to hell." After Mom and Dad brought me home, I also met Linda, who was wearing a gauze dress and adorned with precious jewelry. Her face wore an innocent and pure smile as she bounced toward me. "Sister Natalie, welcome home." She stretched out her arms, eager to give me a warm hug. And I wanted to strangle her. I feel like vomiting just from looking at her. I avoided her hand, not allowing her to touch me. Linda wore a victimized expression on her face, her eyes brimming with grievance. "Dad, Mom, does my sister not like me?" Without hesitation, I replied, "Yes." Linda wore an expression of choked embarrassment. I thought my parents would try to smooth things over, but my mother took my hand and said, "If you don't like it, then you don't like it, as long as you're happy. That's all that matters. Mom and Dad won't force you to like someone you don't. Just be yourself." My father also nodded and said, "My daughter is just straightforward and adorable." Linda's face grew even more unpleasant. I caught a glimpse of the fierce look that flashed quickly in her eyes, but she had to hold it in. My mother continued, "Linda, after all, you are my brother-in-law's daughter. After your father passed away and your mother disappeared, you had no one to take care of you. We wanted to raise you, but we've said it many times. You should call us uncle and aunt, not Dad and Mom." Linda's expression grew even more awkward. She looked at my father as if pleading for help, and he also spoke earnestly. "Linda, you're an adult now, 18 years old. We don't treat you as a child anymore. From now on, whether in public or private, call us uncle and aunt. Don't overthink it. You're still our niece." Linda forced a smile at the corners of her mouth and could only nod obediently. When I entered the bedroom, I realized my parents had always kept it reserved for me and never allowed anyone else to stay there. They had prepared all kinds of gifts for me, all placed in the room. They had never given up searching for me and had always hoped that one day I would return home, back to their side. I hugged my mother, and I could feel that they had never given up on me, in my previous life. I suffered greatly, and they watched me die with their own eyes. How could they not have suffered too? Natalie, whatever you like. Mommy will buy it for you. Dad also chimed in eagerly. Daddy will buy it for you too. Only I could see the madness and jealousy overflowing in Linda's eyes. Be jealous, go crazy, the crazier, the better. Mom and Dad also told me that a banquet would be held tomorrow to introduce me to all the relatives and friends they know, in the evening. Grandma also returned from her vacation abroad. It was my first time meeting this elderly woman. Her gaze sized me up a few times, and I could sense her attitude wasn't particularly warm. On the contrary, Linda flashed her a sweet smile and cooed, calling her Grandma. Grandma had also brought her many gifts, her eyes filled with tenderness and affection. Linda seemed to gloat as she said to me, Grandma is so good to me, but, sister, why don't you have any gifts? She waved the jade bracelet on her wrist. Grandma smiled at me and said, I didn't know Natalie was back beforehand and didn't have time to prepare a gift. Here, I'll give you this bracelet instead. At a glance, I could tell this bracelet was far inferior in quality to the one Linda was wearing. I saw the look of triumph in Linda's eyes, while I accepted it with neither humility nor arrogance. Thank you, Grandma. After dinner, Grandma set down her chopsticks and said gracefully, I have some matters to discuss with my son. You may return to your rooms first. My father calmly said, We're all family here. Whatever needs to be said, everyone can listen. Grandma's eyes showed displeasure, but she no longer insisted on us leaving. She took Linda's hand and said, Since you're holding a banquet tomorrow, it would be perfect to announce another good news at the same time. I think we should have double happiness. You should adopt Linda, and from now on, they'll be real sisters. I looked at my parents, still feeling somewhat uneasy and anxious inside. Will they agree? Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a spark of anticipation light up in Linda's eyes, but my father flatly refused. Mom, we've discussed this many times. We have no intention of adopting Linda. Besides, even without formal adoption procedures, haven't we still raised Linda all these years? Mom, I advise you to drop this idea. There's no way we'll add Linda to our family register. I know you're concerned about Linda's future, and as her uncle, I'll certainly take care of her. My mother was equally firm. Mom, we disagreed from the very beginning, and now that Natalie has returned, it's even more out of the question. Grandma raised her voice. Back then, you refused to adopt Linda, saying you were afraid your daughter would feel out of place when she returned. All these years, you didn't even have a second child, focusing solely on finding her. Now that Natalie is back, the knot in your hearts should be untied, right? What's the harm in adopting one more daughter? Doesn't Natalie need a companion too? They are blood-related after all. My mother didn't back down. Mom, now that Natalie is back, we just want to give her our best. We don't have the energy to raise someone else. Hearing my parents' stance firsthand filled my heart with warmth and a sense of security. They've always been on my side. Grandma was so angry that she coughed violently, scolding Mom and Dad fiercely, calling them unfilial. At this moment, Linda hugged Grandma and said tearfully, Grandma, please don't get so angry for my sake and harm your health. It's all my fault. If you make yourself sick, I'll be heartbroken. Grandma called her darling with deep affection, saying how pitiful she was with no one to love her, having neither father nor mother. Suddenly, Grandma noticed me, and her eyes suddenly lit up. She held my hand and said, Natalie, it's better if you persuade your parents. They only listen to you now. Have some pity on your sister Linda. She's your blood-related sister too. If you ask your parents to officially adopt Linda, wouldn't you become real sisters? I sneered inwardly. How could I not understand? The reason Grandma insisted on Linda being formally adopted was so that Linda could rightfully claim a share of the family assets, rather than just being a niece. Once my parents took the first step of compromise, they might retreat even further in the future. I smiled and replied without hesitation, but Mom and Dad said I'm their only daughter now. If I ever feel lonely, I think having a real sister or brother from my mother's womb would be much better. I caught a glimpse of the fury in Linda's eyes from the corner of my vision, but I couldn't care less. Who does she think she is? Why should I speak up for her and let her officially become my sister? Grandma said angrily. How can you be so selfish? I laughed. Selfish? Me? No one knows the inhuman torment I suffered because of Linda in my past life. Linda, worse than an animal. Can kindness, tolerance, and generosity help you take revenge on such a person? Can they put food on the table? Grandma. Is not adopting her considered unkind and selfish? You're really laying on the moral guilt trip. If you want to call me selfish, then fine, I'm selfish. After all, who would be foolish enough to give their own parents to a complete stranger? As long as mom and dad love me, that's all that matters. As for her, Grandma, do you really think she's pitiful, living in luxury, attending elite schools, cared for by parents, and doted on by you? Why should I have to give my parents to her? Grandma was stunned, pointing at me, but my father shielded me behind him. Grandma fumed angrily. David, look at her. How can she be so ill-mannered? How dare she speak to me like this? Linda is much more sensible than her. I saw my usually gentle father finally show an angry expression. Without hesitation, he interrupted Grandma's words. Mom, don't talk about Natalie like that. She's wonderful, and I don't want to hear any criticism of her. She's our treasure. I hope this is the first and last time I hear such things, or I won't continue supporting Linda anymore. Hearing my father defend me like that, warmth surged in my heart. Grandma wanted to say something, but her eyes also revealed fear and hesitation. As for Linda, her expression was truly a sight to behold. She looked at me unwillingly, yet still managed to put on a fragile and innocent expression. Uncle, Auntie, Grandma, please don't argue over me anymore. It's my fault. I just really love Uncle and Auntie, and I truly want to have parents. Even now, she's still pretending to be wronged, trying to gain sympathy. I smiled and said to Linda, but I'm afraid this wish of yours won't come true. By the way, your birthday is in 2 weeks, right? I remember you're turning 18. I recall the law states that only minor children can be adopted. Let me wish you an early happy birthday. As my words landed, Linda's face instantly changed. She exchanged a glance with Grandma, and I clearly saw in their eyes the reason they were so eager for Mom and Dad to adopt them. It was because she was about to come of age. At this moment, I never expected my father to drop a bombshell as well. Mom, I know exactly what you're thinking. Let me be honest with you. Before we found Natalie, my wife and I had already made a will. If anything were to happen to us, Natalie would inherit 4/5 of all our property upon her return. And the remaining 1/5 would go to you for your retirement. If Natalie never comes back, you would still receive 1/5 of the property, and the rest would be donated to the National Welfare Home. All the assets were built by my wife and me after we got married, so we have the right to handle our own property. Even if Linda were to become our daughter, we wouldn't leave her any money. Grandma's chest heaved violently as she pointed at my father and said, "How could you not leave anything for Linda?" With that, Grandma closed her eyes and fainted. Linda quickly went to support Grandma, crying and calling out to her, yet my heart remained utterly unmoved. With such blatant favoritism toward Linda, it was impossible for me to feel any affection for her. What truly moved me was that my parents had always treated me as their precious child, forever favoring me. However, I couldn't ignore the fact that when we sent Grandma to the hospital, the look Linda gave me was filled with murderous intent and insane jealousy. She must have dreamed of becoming my parents' daughter and sharing their wealth. What a pity. Her sweet dream is destined to be shattered, because my parents neither want her as their daughter nor intend to let her get a single penny. After Grandma was hospitalized, the doctor said there was nothing seriously wrong with her health. However, she still made a big scene in the hospital. My father, probably seeing how energetic and healthy she looked, wasn't as panicked as before. Instead, he hired several high-end caregivers to take good care of Grandma. He still had some business to attend to at his company, so he quickly left to handle those matters. Grandma specifically demanded that I take care of her, or else she'd accuse me of being unfilial. My mother said with a smile, "We didn't raise her properly, so how can we expect her to be filial? Natalie still has to go to Tsinghua University. Mom, since you like Linda so much, let Linda take good care of you." My mother looked at Linda and said gently, "Linda, Grandma loves you so much, you wouldn't be unwilling to take care of her, would you?" A stiff expression flashed across Linda's face, but she quickly smiled and said, "Of course I'm willing. Grandma loves me the most, so of course I'll take good care of her." My mother took my hand and walked out of the hospital with a carefree air. My mom was worried that I might be upset by my grandmother's attitude, so she comforted me and explained why my grandmother was so biased. In the past, my grandmother felt she had wronged her youngest son, thinking he was weak and sickly, so she always spoiled him, but the more she spoiled him, the more rebellious he became. After his passing, she extended this sense of guilt to Linda. I smiled and told my mom it was okay, that I really wasn't upset, because I already have a grandmother who loves me the most, and parents who cherish me dearly. I'm more curious about my mom's attitude towards Linda. Logically speaking, they raised Linda for over a decade, so their bond with her might be deeper than with me. Mom, do you like Linda? My mom seemed afraid I might misunderstand and quickly explained, Natalie. Your mom would never favor Linda over you. Now that your dad isn't here, I'll be straightforward. Back then, it was only for your dad's sake that we took Linda in. Plus, with what happened to you and your grandma's poor health, if we hadn't taken her in, your dad would have felt guilty. But one good thing about your dad is that he always remembered our daughter and knew clearly that our own child was still suffering outside. So he never once thought of letting someone else replace you. At first, I also thought she was quite obedient and well-behaved, so I treated her well, never shortchanging her in terms of food, clothing, or anything else. But after she entered high school, this child's mind became increasingly restless. Her grandmother also kept insisting that we adopt her, and that's when I started to feel she wasn't as innocent as she appeared on the surface. Besides, our hearts have always been longing for you. What we wanted most was to find you, so. My care for Linda was merely that of an elder looking after a younger one. I never thought of treating her as a replacement for you. Maybe I'm selfish too, but the thought of showering love on someone else while you were suffering outside only made me feel even more guilty. Listening to my mother's words, I felt deeply moved. I held her tightly, relieved that they hadn't developed deep feelings for that wretch and that they had never considered letting anyone replace me. I also asked about the specific details of how I had been stolen back then. My mom never wanted to bring this up before. Dad said she would break down in tears whenever it was mentioned, so I hadn't asked for details until recently. Now, watching my mom's expression, she fell silent for a moment before telling me the specifics of how her child was stolen by the nanny at the maternity center while she was recovering from childbirth. That woman named Lucy remains missing to this day. My mother has always felt guilty, believing it was her fault for not watching me closely enough, which allowed Lucy to steal me away. I don't understand why she had to steal my child. Over the years, I've wondered countless times if it was because I wasn't good enough to her, if a single glance was misinterpreted, or if something harsh I said made her uncomfortable, leading her to take my child as revenge against me. Seeing my mother cry in sorrow made me deeply saddened as well. I wiped away her tears. It's not your fault, Mom. Everything's fine now. I'm home. What I was thinking was, Linda found me faster than my own parents, which means Linda knew where I was. Did someone tell her where I was abandoned after being stolen all those years ago? Could that person be Lucy? Perhaps my abduction back then is somehow connected to Linda. No, to someone Linda knows. Ever since I came back, Mom and Dad have been afraid I might lack pocket money, so they gave me a lot, which I used to hire a private detective to keep a close eye on Linda's every move. I know very well that Linda won't let me off easily. As long as I stay by Mom and Dad's side for even a day, she won't give up on me. The next evening, at the banquet, under the introduction of my parents, everyone present learned that I was their long-lost daughter. I am the true heiress of the Lin family. They also specifically clarified what had been left unsaid before, revealing that Linda's true identity is actually the daughter of my father's younger brother. Although Linda was also smiling on the side, seemingly happy for me, I could clearly see the madness and jealousy hidden in her eyes, especially when she stared at the jewelry I was wearing. Mostly, it's because my mom feels too guilty and is determined to be good to me, so she bought me a lot of jewelry, insisting on decorating me like a Christmas tree. I wore 2 imperial green jade bracelets on my wrists and a $1 million ruby necklace around my neck. Especially the quality of the jade bracelets was even better than the jade Grandma gave to Linda. What's more, my mom somehow heard that every girl dreams of being a princess, so she bid for several princess tiaras at an auction and insisted I wear one on my head. So even if I just stood there quietly, my extravagant outfit alone was enough to draw everyone's attention. However, I also noticed the strange excitement in Linda's gaze as she kept staring at me several times. I smiled calmly. Of course I knew what she was up to, because besides hiring a private detective to follow her, I had also hacked into her computer. I was aware of her every move, including how this scumbag had anonymously contacted a high school classmate named Andy to pull some dirty tricks at the banquet. Sipping my milk, I was ready to enjoy the upcoming drama. At that moment, a man in a suit walked in. I recognized him immediately. He was my high school classmate Andy. Back in high school, he had constantly harassed me, until he was eventually expelled for getting into a fight. As soon as Andy saw me, his eyes gleamed with a disgusting, greedy look. The mere thought of how he persistently harassed me during high school, despite my repeated rejections, following me around every break, makes me sick to my stomach. Andy's appearance might be considered handsome, but his lecherous gaze constantly ogling girls, coupled with his hollowed-out physique, and his habit of making vulgar jokes to women, is utterly repulsive. The moment Andy spotted me, he approached like a starving wolf eyeing its prey. Out of the corner of my eye, I also saw Linda curling her lips into a smirk, clearly waiting to see me humiliated. Before I could speak, my mother immediately shielded me. My father frowned and had the bodyguards block Andy. Andy then took out a remote control he had prepared in advance, pressed a button, and the projector began playing a video. I remained calm, showing no sign of panic. Next, the projector showed a woman dancing with several people in a nightclub, and by the end, everyone was taking off their clothes. The woman's face was unmistakably Linda's. Linda's expression changed instantly, and she let out a horrified scream in disbelief. "What's going on? Turn it off now." I pretended to look innocent while watching the video, but inside, I was absolutely thrilled. This video was something I specifically requested from the nightclub, and I paid a premium for it, of course, anonymously. What they don't know is that even though I chose to study medicine, I've always been fascinated by computers. Hacking into a system and replacing the original video was child's play for me. Long before Linda anonymously emailed Andy, instructing him to follow her orders, I had already remotely accessed Linda's computer and sent Andy another email, this one containing her own video, so Andy thought from start to finish that the person he was supposed to retaliate against, according to the email instructions, was Linda. Meanwhile, Linda believed that the person she instructed Andy to retaliate against was me, I just wanted the two of them to fight each other like dogs. At this moment, the entire audience erupted in boos. My mother covered my eyes, as if looking any longer would taint my vision. It was my father who told everyone to close their eyes. He ordered the bodyguards to quickly grab the remote control and unplug the power. Linda screamed and ran away, crying as she fled. "That's not me. It's a photoshopped image. Someone is trying to frame me." I almost burst out laughing when I saw this scene. Actually, I never intended to leave it till the end. My only goal was to show everyone that the real pretender is Linda. Linda's original plan was to have Andy come and cause trouble for me, then publicly play my photoshopped video in front of everyone, trying to make all the social elites believe my past private life was chaotic and ruin my reputation. What I'm going to do is return like for like, an eye for an eye. After Linda ran away, Andy was also forcibly dragged off by the bodyguards, and my father called the police. I initially thought the banquet was ruined, but my father, my mother, and the guests at the scene acted as if nothing had just happened, continuing to chat and laugh at the party. However, this was all superficial. In reality, everyone had already taken note of the dramatic events that unfolded tonight. From today onward, Linda's reputation is thoroughly tarnished. This is just a small revenge of mine. Merely the beginning. In the evening, my parents were chatting with some uncle and auntie they knew. My mother, feeling sorry that I was too tired, let me go back first. At the door of the room, Linda was already waiting. She glared at me fiercely, no longer wearing that fake smile on her face. Her eyes filled with resentment. She loudly accused, "Was it you who was behind this mischief?" I smiled faintly. "What did I do? I don't know what you're talking about. Do you think I'm stupid? Would I admit it?" Linda wanted to come pull my hair, but I mercilessly slapped her across the face instead. This slap, I've been wanting to give it for a long time. Linda stared at me in disbelief. "You dare hit me?" I gave her another slap, swift and fierce. "Yes, I'm hitting you. What can you do about it? Go ahead and tattle. If you have the guts to complain, I have the guts to make mom and dad kick you out. I'll just say you tried to hit me first, and I was forced to defend myself. Who do you think they'll believe? Their own flesh and blood. Or you? What a pity. Now I can only slap her twice. No hurry. There will be plenty of time," I thought to myself. Linda's eyes flashed with venomous hatred. "Don't get too cocky. I won't let you off." I couldn't be bothered with her and went straight into the bedroom, closing the door behind me. Haha, that's my line, I won't let you off, Linda. Andy confessed at the police station that someone had put him up to it. He claimed that he had only received an email. The email stated that if he followed the steps, he could receive a large sum of money. He actually received an advance payment first. Linda was also called in for questioning. She kept crying in distress, saying it was a photoshopped image and that Andy was shameless, deliberately ruining her reputation. Of course I understand. Linda is swallowing her pride and won't admit she was the one who instructed Andy. In the end, Andy was arrested, and while Linda escaped unscathed, her reputation was ruined. Now, whenever people in the industry mention her, they mock how she always pretended to be as pure and innocent as a white lotus, never expecting her to be like this behind the scenes. It's not that you can't play the game, but being two-faced is a whole different matter. After hearing about this incident in the hospital, Grandma was genuinely angered to the point of falling ill this time. Linda tearfully explained that the images were photoshopped, and Grandma actually believed her. However, my parents specifically investigated the matter and naturally knew whether these videos were real or fake. That very night, my father had a talk with Linda, though I didn't know exactly what they discussed. The next day, Linda moved out with red, teary eyes, crying in grievance. Before leaving, Linda shot me a fierce glare filled with venomous resentment. I coldly watched her retreating figure leave my home. Knowing full well this battle was far from over, she wouldn't let me off. And neither would I spare her. A few days later, the private investigator contacted me on their own, saying they had discovered that Linda had been frequently communicating with someone recently. According to the private investigator's report, they found out that Linda had met with a middle-aged woman. They secretly took photos, and when I looked at the pictures, the middle-aged woman in them turned out to be Linda's long-missing mother, Frances, so Linda's mother had been by her side all along. Yet she still shamelessly tried to steal my parents, my position, and my family's wealth. The detective also helped me record a conversation between Linda and her mother, Frances. They thought the private room was secure, unaware that the private investigator, posing as a waiter, had placed an invisible listening device on the table while serving tea and water before leaving. I heard the contents of the recording. Mom, that little bitch is back. It's all because of her that they don't want to adopt me anymore and won't give me a single penny. All that family fortune is going to that country bumpkin. I can't stand it. After all these years of sucking up to them, this is how they treat me, Linda wailed in frustration, and I have to wait on that old hag every day. It makes me sick. Frances comforted her, saying, don't worry, Linda, we still have a chance. Mom has been planning this for so many years. How could she let all this go to waste? I've told you before, everything from the Lynn family will be yours, but that bitch is back. Mom, how did those people handle things? Didn't they promise to sell her to some poor mountain village, making sure she could never appear in front of them again? How did they still manage to find her? I don't know how that wretched girl escaped either. The plan was supposed to be foolproof. Listening to their conversation, I clenched my fists tightly. As expected, Linda alone couldn't have possibly trafficked me to the mountainous area. Unfortunately, in my previous life, I died too early. The people behind Linda hadn't been uncovered yet, and I never got to know the whole truth. At the same time, all the painful memories of being trafficked in the mountains came flooding back into my mind. My body trembled, and I felt nauseous. I will never let them get away with this, Linda continued. Mom, what should we do now? Frances first smiled, then said, Linda, don't worry, Mom won't let her stand in your way. Since she wasn't taken to the mountains, fine, I'll have her taken to Myanmar instead. She brought this on herself. I didn't originally want to kill her, but once she goes to Myanmar, she won't be coming back alive. Myanmar, these two beasts still want to abduct me to Myanmar. I heard their plan. Frances knows someone named Brother Wu. I immediately hired a private investigator to look into this Brother Wu. Soon after, I received the information. Brother Wu is a small-time boss who organizes local workers to go to Myanmar for jobs. He charges per head, and those wanting to work abroad have to pay him an additional fee before he arranges their employment in Myanmar. It turned out Brother Wu was using the pretense of working abroad to sell people overseas. I thought it over all night and have already made my decision. A week later, as I was leaving campus to go home, a car stopped at the gate. It was my family's car. The driver was a new face, smiling as he opened the door for me and then gestured for me to get in. Once inside the car, I immediately noticed the air felt odd. There was a strange smell, and it was stuffy. Before long, I felt my head throbbing more and more, my consciousness dissipating like wisps of smoke. When I woke up again, I found myself lying on a hard floor, my body still groggy and disoriented. Then, a basin of water was poured over me, the chill seeming to seep into my very bones, and with that, I was completely awake. I opened my eyes to see Linda looking down at me with an expression full of triumph. Linda kicked me, and a sharp pain shot through my chest. You little bitch. Still feeling proud now. It's your existence that's stolen everything from me. I looked at her coldly, without a trace of fear. You're the one who's vile. None of that ever belonged to you, not the family fortune, nor my parents. Linda laughed even more wildly, still stubborn even at this point. Fine, I'll kindly remind you. Do you know where I'm going to take you? I stared at her indifferently. Strangely, the more critical the moment became, the calmer I felt, perhaps because I had already endured too many painful experiences in my past life. I wasn't afraid of such dangerous moments. It's Myanmar. I'll sell you to Myanmar first. Let those people torture you every day, make your life worse than death. When you've completely lost all value, you'll die in Myanmar. Don't even think about coming back in this lifetime. Was it you who arranged for that human trafficker to abduct me last time? Indeed, pity you escaped that time. But it doesn't matter. This time you won't get away. I'm going to sell you somewhere even farther away. I suddenly laughed. What are you laughing at? Linda demanded. Me, laughing. I laughed because Linda just turned 18 a few days ago, becoming an adult. Now, with her actions, she can no longer receive leniency for being a minor. This is compounding the crime. You're both stupid and greedy, I retorted without hesitation. In this life, Linda is just a newly adult, naive and greedy, while I am no longer the simple-minded girl who had just finished her college entrance exams, solely focused on studying hard to become a doctor. No one knows that I crawled out of hell just to drag Linda and her birth mother back down with me. Linda tried to kick me, but she was stopped by the dark-skinned middle-aged man beside her. The man's eyes were filled with greed, staring at me as if appraising goods. Stop kicking, you might damage her. She's worth a lot of money now. After hearing this, the anger in Linda's eyes quickly turned to delight. Brother Wu, I'm handing her over to you. You better treat her well. Brother Wu's face broke into a lecherous grin. Don't worry, I'll definitely take good care of such a beautiful woman. But the next second, the door was hurriedly pushed open. Boss, it's bad, the police are here, so many of them. The red-haired guy came running to report. Brother Wu's face immediately showed panic. Linda was also stunned, her hands trembling. Why would the police come? But I wasn't surprised at all. Everything was going exactly as planned. The day I found out that Linda and her mother were colluding with human traffickers and still had a batch of goods to sell, but no one knew where those people were, I immediately chose to call the police. I wanted to take the initiative to become an undercover agent, because from the secretly recorded conversation, I was the last one in this batch of goods. The others were all in a hidden location. Only when I was taken to their hidden lair could the police find the other imprisoned people. So from the moment I was drugged and brought here, the tracker installed on me had already led the police to this place, exposing their headquarters. Brother Wu panicked and tried to flee, still holding a gun in his hand. Linda also panicked and was about to leave when her eyes glared at me viciously. No, there's still you. Linda went to pick up the desk lamp on the table, her eyes revealing a crazed murderous intent. I knew she wanted to kill me. She wouldn't let me go, but as she approached me, I had already broken free from the ropes. They could think of bribing the driver to kidnap me, but they never imagined that the driver was actually someone I had already negotiated with at multiple times the price, and it was also my plan to deliver him to them. So when the driver tied me up, he didn't bind me tightly but used a special slip knot that could be easily loosened with the right technique. When Linda approached me, instead of running away, I stood up and kicked her to the ground with all my strength. Ever since I returned, I've been spending hours every day training relentlessly in boxing at the gym. Every time, I imagine the sandbag as Linda, and every punch I throw feels like retaliation for every bit of pain she has caused me. But now it's different. Finally, the real Linda is standing right in front of me. I slap her hard across the face, and Linda lets out a scream, completely defenseless against my blows. This time, I clearly saw not just the look of disgust in Linda's eyes, but also a gaze filled with fear and pain. But even this is nothing compared to the torment I endured in my past life. Every single day, I was beaten. Every time, I lived like an animal. Every day I want to die. At that moment, Linda's mother Frances entered. Linda looked as if she had seen a savior. Mom, kill her now. Linda, why are you still worrying about her? Escape first. Do you want to go to jail, Linda? Her face covered in bruises, finally had nothing but fear in her eyes. I can't be caught. I can't go to jail. With that, Linda pushed me aside and ran off with Frances. I watched Linda's figure as she fled in panic. Before leaving, Linda glared at me and said viciously, "I'll be back. I won't let you off." But Linda, do you know that sometimes sending you to prison would actually be a mercy? Unfortunately, I don't even want to grant you that mercy. Go ahead and court death if you want. I won't stop you. This operation successfully rescued 105 people who were about to be trafficked to Myanmar, arrested 30 suspects. While 5 others escaped through back roads and have already reached the Myanmar border, the police expressed their gratitude to me. As my undercover work helped rescue the trafficked victims, I replied that this was just a citizen's duty. I look at those people crying tears of joy, and I think, saving them is like saving the former me. The former me fell into an endless abyss, desperately hoping someone would save me. In my past life, I still got my wish 3 days before I died. When the police sent me back, my parents still found out about it. My mother held me and wailed, while my father's eyes glistened with tears. How could you do something so dangerous? You nearly took your parents' lives. Tears streamed down my face as guilt welled up inside me. I'm sorry, but I don't regret it. I must take revenge, and I must also save those who, like me, have fallen into the abyss. Dad, Mom, it's okay. I'll never do these things again. The 3 of us held each other tightly. This time, our family will never be separated again. A year later, during a cross-border rescue operation between Myanmar police and domestic police, many abducted citizens were rescued. I just received the news, which included Frances and Linda. It is said that after the 2 of them fled to Myanmar, they were unexpectedly sold by human traffickers. Linda has gone insane and was specially admitted to a mental hospital. As for Frances, after returning, she confessed to all her crimes during interrogation. One of her crimes was that, out of jealousy toward her sister-in-law, my mother, she bribed the maternity nurse at the time and had me taken away while my mother was in confinement. Originally, Frances had instructed the nanny to drown me in the river, but whether out of fear or a last shred of humanity, the nanny didn't kill me. Instead, she took me back to her village and gave me to my adoptive parents, who had no children at the time. Later, it wasn't that Frances didn't want to be a wealthy socialite. It was because she went abroad for a trip and ended up in prison. She got into a fight overseas out of jealousy and was sentenced to over a decade in prison for intentional assault. She was only released and returned to the country this year. While secretly contacting Linda, she also gave Linda advice, hoping that after Linda was adopted, she would inherit all the Lin family's wealth. After I got into university, the nanny, who was strapped for cash, thought of Frances and the events of that year, using them to blackmail Frances. That's how Frances found out I wasn't dead, that I was still alive, and that I had even been admitted to Tsinghua University. So she still refused to let me go, bribing traffickers to sell me into the mountains. When the first attempt failed, she tried again, this time aiming to sell me to Myanmar. Because ever since her husband passed away, she's been hanging out with those gangsters. Actually, even before marriage, she was a little delinquent who knew many people in the underworld and had numerous connections. Brother Wu was one of her old flames. At the same time, the police also mentioned another piece of information revealed by Frances. Linda isn't the biological daughter of my parents and younger brother. When my grandmother learned about this, she remained completely silent. This time, she fell seriously ill. From then on, no one was allowed to mention the names Linda and Frances. Her attitude toward me had softened compared to before, though we still couldn't grow close. But it didn't matter, because I had my parents' love and care. Later, I was granted special permission to visit Linda, who was locked up. I looked at Linda sitting on the hospital bed, silent as a lifeless puppet. No one knew what she had endured in Myanmar or why she had gone mad. Gazing into her eyes, I whispered 2 sentences by her ear. If you're pretending to be insane, you'd better keep it up for life, and do a more convincing job. Don't worry, you'll never leave this psychiatric hospital. As I opened the door, my eyes caught the faintest flutter of her eyelashes. I chuckled softly. Whether in a mental institution or in prison, her fate would be confinement. A few months later, Linda was exposed for faking insanity because I specifically spent a fortune to hire world-renowned psychiatric experts for evaluation. Linda's deceptive tricks were laid bare before professionalism. She was still sentenced to prison. Later, when she was released, she had nothing left, even though I no longer sought revenge on her or concerned myself with her life, focusing instead on my own. Her life took a sharp downturn, and she completely gave up on herself. She became the dregs of society, living each day in a drunken haze. Within a few years, she truly lost her sanity and was admitted to a mental hospital. As for me, after graduating, I pursued my studies all the way to a PhD, and ultimately became a doctor. I brought my parents to see the grandmother I truly admire in my heart. Standing before the tombstone, I silently said in my heart, "Grandma, I've finally fulfilled my promise to you. In this lifetime, I've made something of myself. In this life, my life was not destroyed. Fortunately, our family is finally reunited, and Mom and Dad love me very much. In this lifetime, I must cherish and love my parents dearly." Extra, before rebirth, previous life. From the perspective of Natalie's biological parents, Frances was sentenced to death for her involvement in multiple human trafficking crimes, including several cases involving fatalities. Years later, Linda was released from prison. She had participated in Natalie's trafficking case, and although she wasn't the mastermind, she was still sentenced to several years in prison. As she was walking down the road, suddenly, a car violently crashed into her. She was killed on the spot, her eyes wide open as if she couldn't believe she would die. She was Lydia, Natalie's biological mother. A smile appeared at the corner of her lips. Without a trace of regret or fear, she gently kissed the photo of her beaming daughter. "Sweetheart, Mommy has avenged you." Then, she too closed her eyes. She had already made up her mind before doing this. She was going to be with her baby. She was only a mother to her baby for 3 days. But since she was a mother, she would protect her baby forever. "Don't be afraid, baby, Mommy is here." A few days later, a man with completely white hair stood before the tombstones of his wife and daughter, gently caressing their photos. "After I've taken care of our affairs, I'll come to you. Be good and wait for me. If there's a next life, our family must be happy together, and never be separated again." The wind brushed against his cheeks, carrying away his tears. Whether they heard him or not remained unknown. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.